So first and foremost, I want to apologize because it's been about 3 weeks since the last episode of The Forge went up. This is largely because we've been really busy with some exciting things going on as of late. We had the Chaos Arena preview event that was then followed by the actual Chaos Arena event itself. We had the TSL Championship Series tournament that I played in. We had the Streamer Showdown. So there's been a lot going on, but the good news is I'm not running out of ideas. It's not like it's a delay because I don't have more card ideas or design ideas that I want to share with you guys. If anything, I'm probably backed up. So I'm hoping that with the downtime of the holidays, I'll be able to push some of those ideas out to you guys because I'm eager and excited to share them with you. So I would say look for a handful of episodes to probably make its way to the channel over the next couple of weeks. So really sorry about the delay, but just know that it's coming. We got fun stuff coming. So this episode, all right, this one is going to be based on an idea I had from the Madhouse collection. So Illusory Mimic is a card that was released in the Madhouse collection, and it looks at keywords that are on the top cards of your deck, your library. Sorry, I'm going to say library because I'm an old Magic player, right? So top cards of your deck. I got to thinking, what would it look like if it wasn't just minions, wasn't just creatures that had keywords on them? And we know that there are items that can grant keywords, but I don't think that that's the right interaction. So really for me it was more of a, what would it look like if actions had keywords? And I came up with what I felt like were 3 good examples of how that could work. And these would be cards that in my mind would actually interact with Illusory Mimic. So that's going to be the focus of this episode. So first up we have Giant Swing, which I kind of liked the double meaning behind the name of this action, right? Like it's taking a giant swing, but it could also be the swing from a giant, right? And this card's pretty straightforward. It is a card that has Breakthrough as its keyword that's on an action, and it is 4 magicka to deal 5 damage to a creature. So I like this because it serves as removal, but then it's removal that does excess damage to the opposing player, right? This is something that I think could be played in both control decks and potentially in aggro decks. Obviously, I think aggro would favor it more because they want to go face, so this does like a 2 for 1 for them. They get to get a threat off the board, preferably like a pesky guard creature off the board, and then also get some extra damage going to the opponent, right? So this is a way that I think that Breakthrough would work on an action. I think it's pretty straightforward and makes sense. And again, in my mind, this would be the sort of thing that would also trigger on Illusory Mimic because the action has the keyword. Next up, we have Viper Bite. Viper Bite, again, very straightforward. There's not going to be like a ton of flash to these cards because I'm really trying to look at the most basic way that you could potentially do keywords on actions. So Viper Bite is 3 magicka, and it deals 1 damage, and it has lethal as its keyword. So on the one hand, it's quality removal, or it could be 1 point of direct damage, but it's also not the same as some of the other hard removal because it does require damage to be done, and that's why I put it at 3, right? When you compare it to, say, like Piercing Javelin or Edict of Azura, for example, those can still hit things that have ward. Those can still hit like Mage Slayer, right? Mage Slayer would not die to Viper Bite because he cannot take damage from actions. So there are some limitations in this. And the other obvious comparison would be like Territorial Viper, but that Viper is at least a creature, so in theory you could keep it on the board, or there are other interactions, right? You could give it ward and then it could maybe take out 2 creatures, whereas with the action you can't do that. So I felt like it was appropriate to cost something like this at 3. I think there's no question that this would be played, right? It's a bargain basement level of removal, but it's not as straightforward as it might immediately look because there are a lot of things that would still survive this initially. So it's an interesting card to me. Again, the point though is that we're giving an action a keyword here, so this would still trigger for Illusory Mimic and have some potential other interactions, right? I think that's kind of the cheekiness of adding keywords to actions in my mind is not just Mimic, but then future design space for cards like Mimic. So that idea just in general is what got me excited in thinking about these kinds of cards. And then the last one, which I think is the one that has the most depth, and it's actually, as I was thinking about this card, it made me consider future designs for a different problem that it's been rattling around in my head. So the next video is likely going to focus on like a subset of this, but I don't want to spoil it, so we're not going to go too deep in that part. But the last one I have is Bite of the Volcaha. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but I know that the Volcaha are at least one of the tribes or clans of vampires in Elder Scrolls. I try to keep these things at least somewhat lore friendly. I'm not like a huge lore nerd, but I know enough, and usually when I'm doing these designs, I at least take the time to like Google like what would be appropriate references and where things would belong. So Bite of the Volcaha is interesting to me because it has Drain as its keyword, but it also has Prophecy, and it just says deal 2 damage. Now the reason I think that this card is interesting, and the reason that I think this one has depth, is that Drain as a keyword specifically says when this does damage on your turn, you gain life. So this card creates an interesting choice for the person if it triggers as a Prophecy, because you can still do the 2 damage as a Prophecy, but you would not gain the life because it would not be your turn. So it's interesting because it allows you to still, maybe kill an attacking creature, maybe remove a threat for free if it triggers as a Prophecy, but it's strictly inferior if you play it as a Prophecy as opposed to if you played it from your hand, because it's stronger when played from hand, which again is got me thinking about some other design potentials, and that's probably what the next video is going to be on. I've got a whole host of ideas that, again, I've been taking notes and I'm really excited to share, but everything's been so busy as of late. So for me anyway, fun, exciting episodes coming in the future. Hopefully you guys enjoy them half as much as I enjoy coming up with them. But yeah, Bite of the Volcaha would be interesting to me because of that, right? It's the idea of a Prophecy card that is strictly inferior when played as a Prophecy, and then gets better when played from the hand. And that's why I think that 3 would still be an appropriate cost, because 3 to do 2 damage is less than Crushing Blow, and yes, it has Prophecy, but a Prophecy to just deal 2 damage also makes it obviously less than Lightning Bolt and other things, but you get the benefit of, if you do hard cast it, if you do play it from hand, you can gain a little bit of life from it. So as always, these are like first drafts. I say that frequently, but I want to reiterate, whenever I do stuff for the Forge, these are like the rough first draft ideas that would come to my head. All of these things would require testing, could go through iterations. I'm always open to changes and bounds and whatever, right? The idea of card design is that, each card in my mind anyway is typically created for the most part in a vacuum, where I might have other ideas for cards it would interact with. But if I were in a position where, let's say I was a game designer and I worked for Direwolf or I worked for Bethesda, and I was thinking about like the overall introduction of this card into the game and interactions with, let's be honest, future expansions, right? There's a chance that it might need to be changed for balance reasons. So for right now, this is the rough draft, but I think that this is a good example of how keywords could look and feel on actions, and hopefully, you enjoyed it, and it spurred some ideas for you guys as well. And as I said, again, we got some more episodes coming here in the near future. I'm excited. I really appreciate you guys watching the videos, and I will see you next time.